Swim check 1, 2. Bike check 1, 2. Run check 1, 2. I think we're ready. Let's try this. Welcome to the Try Beginner's Luck podcast, a podcast where we explore the sport of triathlon from a variety of perspectives to help beginner triathletes on their journey. I am your host, Mashonda Shines. So my smile and the joy that I have inside is uncontainable, and I am going to try to contain it as much as possible. Welcome to the anniversary edition of Try Beginner's Luck. It is another edition, but it's an anniversary edition because we are officially 1 year old, or we are 1-year-olds now. We're toddlers in the game. We are moving on up. Ooh, let's keep on the training wheels because there's still a lot to learn. And I'm sure a 1-year-old is not riding a bike with training wheels, but you never know. You know, we have some wild things that are happening with the kids that are coming out of the birth canals of these awesome, amazing women triathletes. So anything can happen. A baby can ride a bike at 1, and we're definitely riding. And I just want to say thank you. Thank you to every listener who supported us thus far. Thank you to I just want to give God some glory for the idea to do Try Beginner's Luck and to have the strength to do it amongst the other things that happened last year. And I couldn't do this without 2 incredible women who said yes to this wild vision and dream. So to Sarah Truitt and Maria Simone, thank you. Thank you for our meetings that we have week after week. Thank you for your ideas. Thank you for your time, your energy, and your love that you pour into this project. I appreciate you, and I want to say thank you. Whew. Do not get emotional because you guys know by now I am a crybaby, and it's okay. I own it. I own it. But welcome, anniversary edition, Try Beginner's Luck. I am overwhelmed with so much joy in my heart today. And not that it's not always, but today is actually special. We get to interview a 2-time world champion. What? Mind blown. This person did Kona in October. And technically, oh my gosh. Oh, both of them are in October. Did Kona at the beginning of October and St. George at the end of October. I would say he's pretty bionic. We also got a preview because this person snuck up on the Try Beginner's Luck DM and gave us some behind the scenes takeover action in Kona. This person is an age group athlete who's currently working on his PhD in biostatistics at Georgetown University. He started his triathlon journey only 4.5 years ago after finding that water and rehabbing a water injury was the way to go. Since then, he has gone buck wild. And because the season is about overcoming, he got injured this year in an accident, which we will talk about. And so to think that he probably had maybe 6 good weeks to ride outside, 6 good weeks to run outside, and 6 weeks to rehabilitate and learn how to swim again. And he's now completed 2 major triathlons on the largest world stage. Ladies and gentlemen, I need to introduce you to Mr. Patrick McDeed. Patrick, welcome to Try Beginner's Luck.
Oh, thank you. That's quite the introduction. And first of all, congratulations on the 1-year anniversary. I'm honored to be a part of year 1, now going into year 2.
Woo! Body rolling. Hey, hey, hey. Yes, I'm dancing. So if you want to see the dance, watch YouTube. I would have dressed up a little nicer, but ooh, child, the work day has been a day. Half braids in, half braids out. Nowhere to celebrate than just being in the mix. Anyway. Whoa, Patrick, what a year. it's been for you?
Yeah, I mean, I'm still processing everything, so I have no idea where this conversation is going to go. There might be a lot of rambling and going through things in real time. It's all happened very fast, but it's been incredible. I mean, I just got back home yesterday evening from St. George, so it's still just like all fresh in the mind, and yeah, so I can't believe the ups and the downs and the journey this year has been.
Oh, wow. Well, I love that we're getting the raw take on your thoughts and your emotions. There's nothing like having it raw and just real in the moment. But let's just do some backwards motion. You know, I was reading a little bit about your background, and really you're new to just fitness, and you're new to all of this. Give us a little bit of history about who Patrick McDeed was, and then roll it into who you are today.
Yeah, I don't really have a background in any sport in particular. Growing up, I was always kind of around the water. Just grew up swimming in the local lakes, and then swam competitively as a little kid up through about age 12. But as I grew up, I seemed to grow a little bit wider and compared to my peers, and it was really demoralizing as a child. You know, those kind of middle school, high school years can definitely be tough with your peers. And it definitely was for me being an overweight child, and that kind of soured me on like kind of competitive sports. And I really was, that side of things kind of left for me. When I entered college, I decided it was a good time to make some lifestyle changes and just kind of started eating healthier and focusing on general fitness, going to the gym regularly and working in some cardio. And then somewhere along the way, I thought it would be a good idea to try running, something I never did and tried to sneak out of. And any time it was involved in soccer practice or something of the like to figure out how I could run the least amount of laps. But yeah, I just started running a little bit, and then along the way, and an internship, started running with a coworker after work, and he convinced me to sign up for a 5K, which happened to be the BAA 5K around the Boston Marathon. And if anyone's been in Boston for Marathon weekend, it is just an incredible atmosphere, whether you're a runner or not. It's infectious. And I think that's kind of when things started to snowball. And as most, I think, who have ventured down this rabbit hole are probably listening to this podcast, so 5K leads to 10K to the half marathon, and then just all the races from there. And it's crazy looking back at it. Even just this past week in St. George is getting kind of the Google Photos updates timeline on my phone. And it was 7 years ago. Was a picture of me running my first half marathon, and just to like put into perspective, like from that moment to where I was and in St. George, it was just kind of shocking. Yeah.
Wow. So just 7 years ago, you were doing your first half, and now in November 2022, you are a two times world champion, and one in 70.3 and one in the 140.6. That's not an easy feat. And I thank you for sharing your journey about being, as you say, you were growing wider, and being an overweight child and turned into um, a beast of an athlete. I think sometimes people need to hear that there's time and there's room to always make improvements, and there's always an opportunity to change whatever it is that you don't want. Or sometimes naturally you have genetics that just play a certain role, um, but the fact that you wanted something very different for yourself, and you had a coworker who introduced you to running, that was the gateway drug, and now you're here. So you started running with a friend, you did the BAA 5K. Tell me, how did you like make the transition from running into try? Like that seems to be a very unique transition. So tell us about that transition.
Yeah. So I really got into to running after that. So after that first half marathon, my roommate at the time said, all right, bucket list item, while we're still young, let's run a marathon. So we signed up for a marathon that fall and did it. Wasn't fast. We both struggled a lot. We weren't trained for it, but mission accomplished. And then from there, I decided that, this was actually really fun. I should really look into this more, and joined a local running club in Boston. And that's where, I found kind of the endurance community, and that was just such a great supportive environment. And that really got me into getting more serious into training for running specifically, and looking at races, and just connecting with an amazing group of people that were supportive of my running journey, but then also me as a person. And then being kind of a naturally shy person, that really helped kind of break me out of my shell a little bit. And so one marathon led to another, and naturally it was too much too soon for my running body to handle. So I got a hamstring injury, and in the process of rehabbing, I started swimming again, and was on the spin bike in the gym. And then kind of through that process, just really found the love for the water again that I had as a little kid. And it was kind of coming back to the sport on my own terms. There wasn't any really competitive desire there. It was just doing something kind of for me and for myself, and I really enjoyed it again. And there was just something so relaxing about being in the water. I know not everyone has that experience when they're diving into triathlon for the first time. So I think that's something I really appreciate, is having kind of that natural feel and love for the water. And then so through all that, I decided to throw all three of those things together once I was fully healed, and signed up for a local sprint triathlon put on by my YMCA back home in New Hampshire. And yeah, that's kind of where it all started. And that was 4.5 years ago now. Again, it's really crazy to look back on.
That is pretty interesting. As you say that the water was very relaxing, because I and look, I may have people who disagree with me, but I feel like the water is only relaxing when you're not training. Like if you're training for something, you actually have to do stuff. That water, you'd be like, oh, I think I just recently told my coach, I was like, I actually have been hating swimming lately. And I don't like to get to where I hate to swim. But it is what it is. And then thank God that you did fall back in love with and thought it was relaxing to swim, because you're right, that's not everyone's story. And the swimming can be so intimidating. But when you just relax and let go, it can be a very tranquil and healing experience. I often find I like to float in the water. Do you just sometimes get in the water and just float and just let whatever the day's problems is just kind of go? Is that something that you do as well?
Especially, open water can be a very intimidating environment for many, but sometimes just like stopping where you are and just taking in the scenery around you can be such an amazing experience. Like if you're out on a lake, just watching the sunrise kind of come over the trees and just like appreciating that. Or even when we were in Kona, like that was just one of the most amazing swim venues. And just to be out there swimming in the middle of the race, and then you just like you take a stroke and you look over and just look out over the coastline and the volcano in the background, and just appreciating where you are in that moment. And it was, yeah, it's
Yeah.
sometimes it is it's just to take that moment when you feel kind of panicked in the water, and just relax and enjoy what your body's allowing you to experience.
Mm, that's good. Relax and enjoy what your body is allowing you to experience. That's good. I'm going to take that into my next experience when I'm at a destination where I can just look and see all of the what nature has to offer, and just really kind of absorb it and take it in. So you made a decision. You did your first try at the YMCA. So tell us about your first experience, and what are some of your learning lessons from your first ever triathlon?
I think like most when they get into the sport, I was completely under prepared. Like I, you know, knew more or less how to swim, how to ride a bike, and how to run. But the actual mechanics of throwing it all together, the gear required, I didn't really have any understanding of that. I had a road bike that I bought off of Craigslist that probably didn't fit me. It had, regular platform pedals that I wore my running shoes on. I had a regular road helmet with a nice little visor to shield me from the sun, I guess. And I don't know, I just kind of did the thing. I didn't have a wetsuit or anything, and just swam my swim trunks, put on some running clothes in T1, and rolled out on my bike. You know, and then hopped up right off. And part of the perks of riding in your running shoes is T2 is pretty quick, so that was nice. And went out for a little 5K run. It was yeah, definitely a different experience.
So, what would you tell your then 4 years ago self? Because 4 years ago, how old would you have been?
I was probably just turned 23 at the time.
So, 23-year-old Patrick, what would you tell 23-year-old Patrick today?
Oof, that's a tough one. Like, man, I think just to, yeah, even I did this, but just like to enjoy kind of that experience. I feel like it got pretty serious pretty quick. And you really kind of dived in. For myself, I really like dove right into kind of the minutia and got really involved in the training. But just like those early stages are kind of enjoyable, where you're just a complete beginner at something, and it's okay to kind of work through the clunkiness. You don't have to take yourself too seriously right off the bat. Yeah, and then it's okay to just kind of trial it out for a little bit, and see where your interests lie. I think I was fortunate that I really, found a good local triathlon group in New Hampshire to kind of help, ease me into the sport, show me the ropes, and work through some of those challenging times, and really got me hooked on triathlon in general. But I think there's some fun to be had in just exploring the sport for yourself.
I often wonder, so New Hampshire, what was the name of your track club in New Hampshire again?
Northeast Multisport.
Aha. So I'm so special, right? I would be like, well, Northeast Multisport, thinking Northeast Maryland, because limited purview, Mashonda. And I'd be like, well, I don't understand, but I thought he lived in DC. So I would always be confused. And so now I get to know. So New Hampshire is where you're from, I'm assuming.
Yeah.
Okay. And so you're a part of a couple of tri teams, like most triathletes, right? So you're a part of New Northeast Triathlon in New Hampshire, and then you're also a part of Team Grit in the Washington D.C. area, correct?
Yep, that's right.
That's how I met you. I met you. I
Yeah.
remember my first time meeting Patrick, and this is you probably don't even know this story, Patrick. I we were at Haynes Point. Oh, this was last year. We were at Haynes Point, and I was trying on a wetsuit in the parking lot, and you came by and you were so sweaty with salt and stuff all on your body. I was like, ugh, this is so disgusting. Get away from me. And it was just like, who is this guy? I was like, it's like, hi, my name is Patrick. I was like, hey, Patrick, not knowing you were training for Maryland. And you were probably doing like a shakeout run. And now that it's playing back in my mind, I'm like, oh, that's Patrick. And so let's talk a little bit about moving to DC, because you moved to DC to work on your PhD. Ah, that kind of rhyme. You moved to DC to work on your PhD. Okay, it'll sound better if I had a beat to it. But yeah, so you moved to DC to work on your PhD, and you're now getting into the bigger races. What was it like to come here, find a team, and to jump right in?
Yes. So I was really, really fortunate. Well, maybe unfortunate. We'll get to that. So I moved here in fall 2019, and I found Marcus and Grit kind of right off the bat. And then, shortly thereafter, we know where things went. So it was great that I found kind of a community right from the start that I could stay involved with through kind of 2020, 2021, and then now through 2022, where it's been some very challenging times to kind of make some of those connections, especially if you're moving to a city that's more or less shut down. during the peak of the pandemic. And so kind of in that time, it was great to have some local support here on the ground that I could keep in touch with through, training and setting big goals and having, a lot of people based here in DC through with Grit, and then kind of our broader tri community here that we're working towards Maryland. We also have a great group back home that I could stay in touch with virtually kind of through the whole process. And I really set kind of at the onset of the pandemic, kind of through that winter, that I really wanted to try this Ironman thing when races opened back up. And then knowing other people that were doing Maryland, it made sense geographically that I put that kind of as a target and as a goal, and just kind of went full steam ahead. To train for it. And I really enjoyed that process. I think I just enjoy kind of the monotonous work that's involved in long distance triathlon. Like, none of it's really super exciting. I mean, you can do your fun interval workouts or whatnot, but it's just like enjoying the long rides, the long runs, long swims, a lot of time to yourself. I joke that I do my best thinking on the bike or the run, but there is some times that when I really I need a mental break from my research, and I'll have that moment of clarity while out in the trails or something. So it's just been a great fit for that, to have that kind of that physical outlet, but also the mental outlet, and then also it ties in with just an incredible group of people, both here in DC and back home.
Wow, what a like the perfect timing. You came to DC right before the pandemic and the world shut down. You meet up with Marcus and Grit, and you just take off. So during this time of saying, "Oh, when the world opens back up and racing begins, I want to do a marathon," do you have a coach? Like, because and I asked this because you you did Maryland, and it was your first long distance ever, and you podiumed and qualified for Kona on your first time. So did you coach? And then I want to kind of I want you to reverse engineer that and tell us about your experience at Maryland. But do you have a coach, and are you just self-coached?
So for Maryland, I was self-coached. I had worked with a coach prior, but when things were very uncertain, kind of with the pandemic and race planning, and it was kind of remote anyways, it just made sense to take a little bit of a break for a while. And I personally really love the aspect of tinkering with my daily schedule and mapping things out long term. Probably fits with the endurance athlete type A planning uh, type thing. But I really just enjoyed that process of setting out my race calendar and writing up some training. And maybe it wasn't the best. I'm sure there's coaches who have a lot of experience to share and would probably make some adjustments from what I did. But I think that's part of what made some of that process fun, was having some ownership of it myself. At the same time, I mean, having a coach can really help keep you accountable and see things in a different way than you might not otherwise, because you're so stuck in it that sometimes it helps to have someone who's a little bit removed from the training or the goal race to give you kind of a broader perspective of things. So then leading up through Maryland, I feel like I still haven't even processed that one. I think like an Ironman is just it's just a long day, and it's nothing in and of itself individually totally remarkable. It's all, if you just look at like the individual swim, the bike, or the run, it's things you can definitely wrap your head around doing, and none of the paces or anything seem outstanding. Like, you can run way faster than that in training. You could, if you wanted to, you could probably run longer. A marathon is still a really long time. That one's still kind of, I don't know how the body does that at the end of an Ironman. Yeah, but it was just like, it's probably come across here in this conversation. I'm very process oriented. And then leading, like, on the day of Maryland, I had written out my race plan and kind of, markers on the course, mantras of, things I wanted going through my head at certain points, writing out my fueling plan and just kind of checking off all of those boxes throughout the day, having backup plans, and then just, going through one by one. And then before I knew it, I was kind of deep into the marathon. Things started to get a little bit tough then, but I could see the finish line um, in sight more or less. And yeah, it was all of a sudden, like 10 hours had passed by, and I was crossing that finish line. And I still, even now, having like done that race and having done Kona, like an Ironman distance, 140.6 miles is a long, long time. I I don't know how our bodies are able to do that. Yeah, it's insane to process, but it was something I never thought I could ever do or would ever want to do. Kind of going back to where we started. But yeah, yeah. I don't know. I'll cut it off there and let you ask a follow-up question.
No, and I just want to point out that for those of you who are listening who don't have any desire to do an Ironman, that's fine because it's not everyone's destiny or journey to do an Ironman or a long course for that matter. But what I want to share is that I do recall Patrick doing every distance. He did a 5K first, then a 10K, then a half, then a full. He did a sprint, then he did an Olympic, then he did a half, then he did a full. So he didn't do no pop out, I'm doing an Ironman, or pop out, I'm doing this. He's actually done the natural progression of each of the distances to be able to appreciate all of the distances. And so, my follow up question to your journey to Maryland and getting to the finish line is you did all of that and you podiumed, qualified for Kona, all on your intuition and how you like to tinker with your scheduling and your training peaks or whatever you used.
Yeah, I will have to credit like a lot of people who put out great information on the internet. Like I'm kind of a nerd about these things, so I, listen to a lot of podcasts, watch, different webinars or whatever on YouTube, and read all the resources, and follow some smart people on Twitter. I don't think there's really many secrets kind of in endurance sport, or secret workouts that are gonna unlock some hidden potential. And a lot of it is just kind of putting in the consistent, like I said, kind of more or less monotonous work. It doesn't have to be super fast or super fancy all the time, but just being consistent over the course of many, many weeks, for months at a time, is kind of how I built up to that Ironman. I mean, other than this past year, haven't had many training interruptions, and it's just something that's kind of a daily habit for me, and something like I enjoy personally. I know it doesn't work with everyone's schedule. I'm very blessed to have a lot of flexibility with my current life commitments. Obviously, like my thesis research is pretty time consuming, and it can be a lot mentally. But outside of that, I'm young. I don't have family commitments that I know is a huge strap on a lot of people who are entering into triathlon. And also my work is more or less remote. If I have my laptop, I can pretty much do all the work I need. And now that Zoom conferencing is more common practice, it's opened up even more flexibility in terms of my schedule and when I can get work done, and when I can meet with different people. So that's been a huge boon in terms of fitting in the training kind of around my daily life.
Okay. So I love that the flexibility because you're right. I think there's some really beautiful things that came out of the pandemic, and one of those has been remote working and being able to kind of have a little bit more autonomy over your schedule and the flexibility to work where it might be comfortable for you. I want to now kind of segue into your road to Kona because this is where the story gets a little interesting and a little bit where people are going to lean into their on their seats to listen in a little bit more intently. So, road to Kona, you've qualified. What happens next? Like, what does one do? What was life for you like at this point?
So immediately after Maryland, well, first of all, things were a bit weird when we're stepping back to right after Maryland. It was kind of uncertain what Ironman was going to be doing with the world. championships is originally scheduled for February of 2022. That ended up in Kona, and that ended up getting cut. And they moved that to then May in St. George, and then opened up this 2-day event uh, in October of 2022. And when that was announced, this was about 2 weeks after Maryland, they retroactively gave Kona spots. So I spent 2 weeks kind of on slow twitch, looking at all the forums and the rumor mill of, when, if these slots would be filtered down, because I came in second in my age group, and my age group was only given one slot. And unfortunately, the person who came in first did take that, and it was well earned. He absolutely smoked the rest of us. So he definitely earned his spot to Kona. But thankfully, one spot did open up for my age group, and I was able to qualify for Kona at that point. And then kind of, at that point, I took a normal off season, like I think everyone should, especially if you are really building up for a big race. Whatever that race is for you, you've put in a lot of physical and mental energy into this. It's good to just take some time to exhale, let that settle. So that's what I did, and then kind of went forward into planning out what the next year would look like, knowing that Kona was a big goal, but it'd also be my first time there, hopefully of more to come in the future. And that it's a very challenging course. It's a tough environment, and there's going to be a lot of really fast people there. So I had realistic expectations kind of at the beginning of the year of what that would look like, but I wanted to do well for myself at that event. And so that meant having a really, really solid year of training. And I really wanted to, Kona aside, I'm doing this, not to win podiums or anything like that. It's more just for trying to get the most out of myself, figure out kind of what that limit is. And I still don't know yet. And I think it will take many years to find that edge. So the race I wanted to really put on the calendar and test myself was Lake Placid in July. And so leading into that, I did a half distance back up in New England in training. That was about 4 weeks before Lake Placid. Unfortunately, I had a bike crash in that race, completely my own fault. Still don't quite know how it happened. And I ended up breaking my collarbone. And so that was 4 weeks from Lake Placid and 15 weeks from Kona. Fortunately, did not need surgery, but it was pretty rocky road. It caused a lot of anxiety. So I was in a sling for 8 weeks. I still went up to Lake Placid to support some friends and see Shonda there as well. And she offered some great support, and I think some prayers that helped carry me to the finish lines to come. But in that time when I was in a sling, I obviously had to take a couple weeks off, but I tried to get back on the spin bike in my sling, one arm on the handlebar to keep the legs turning over. I was walking a ton. If you're someone who's used to running, jogging, and always on the move, to just be taking laps around the neighborhood was mentally really tough. And I, on the weekends, I would try to go out for some longer hikes in the mountains, which was a good mental release. Also probably had some physical benefit, but mostly it was just for the mental release. And then, once that sling came off, I was able to put two arms back on the handlebars and try to work on running. It was a little jarring at first. The collarbone was cranky, and I wasn't really sure what to do with my arms. They're kind of flapping all over the place. And then 5 weeks before Kona, I got back into the water for the first time and tried to learn how to swim again. Somehow I was able to. The first few swims were absolutely awful. I didn't think I was going to be able to, swim a few hundred yards, let alone the 2.4 miles that were on deck in about a month's time. But somehow just after some work in PT and some work on my own, and just those little baby steps at first, the body came around and got me to the start line, and somehow carried me on to through to the finish line in Kona.
Okay. And I want to make sure I heard you correctly. So you were in a bike crash in New Hampshire doing a 70.3. And what did you hit somebody, hit a car, or what exactly happened?
Embarrassingly, it's just me and my poor bike handling skills that are to blame. Um, there's no cars or other cyclists involved. It was just after an aid station, so I picked up a water bottle. That was fine, and was getting back going. Had crossed a hill, and I could feel the bottle trying to eject, and I had bent down to fix it. And at some point there, I don't know if I hit something on the road or just kind of like lost the back edge of my wheel, but I went down. It's a movement that I've done many, many times before. But for whatever reason, at that point, it caused me to crash. And the next thing I knew, I was sliding across the ground and is definitely in shock when it first happened. And got myself together, thought I could eventually ride the bike. But some people who were passing the other direction in their cars stopped to see if I was okay, which I'm very thankful for. Um, and it quickly, like within talking to them, I realized that my arm wasn't moving, and then the pain started to set in, and I was like, okay, yeah, this is not good. I'm gonna have to pull out of this one.
Well, thank God that one, you didn't have to have surgery and that you were able to kind of walk away ish from it. And two, um, accidents happen. They're not something that we want to happen. But I'm just sitting here thinking about the timeline you said. So, was it 4 weeks before Placid that you got into the crash? And then 15 weeks at that time before Kona. And you weren't able to get in the water again to even start to swim again until 5 weeks before the race.
Yeah, I believe that's the timeline. But to
Oh,
be honest, I mean, I thought, if I could get in the water once or twice before Kona, like I'd be good. I can float through that. But the hardest thing for me mentally was the bike. And that
mm,
I had the most time to kind of get reacclimated for. But I mean, even now, like in Kona and then in St. George, or even in training rides, it has taken a long time to relax when I first get on the bike. And sometimes I don't. You get a
right.
crosswind or something and you feel unstable, or you're going fast on a hill, and it's still in the back of my mind.
Right.
I think that was probably the most challenging thing, is it really kind of shakes your confidence,
Yeah.
which is definitely humbling.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. I can
but,
only imagine because that's trauma, right? And so it takes time to heal from the trauma and to support yourself, to like build that confidence back up with you. But the body does some amazing things. And I know it's nothing shy of a miracle that all this happened. And it's a testament to show what can happen and what can do, you know, when you believe. And I remember seeing you in Lake Placid, and I just happened to go to Lake Placid because I was like, I've never been to Lake Placid. I've heard so many great things, and I just wanted to come and support. And when I saw you and having an opportunity to encourage you and to just chat with you, I knew like that was probably the reason why I was there. I feel like I'm a natural encourager, and it's one of the gifts that I've been blessed with. And to be able to encourage you and to continue to encourage you. And even in like when I was back in DC, just I would write and I'm like, okay, just heal Patrick, make sure he's okay for his race. And to see that, I was just rejoicing because I knew the state in which you were, and to be able to see this moment where you not only did Kona, but you were also able to do St. George, but God, right?
yeah, I don't even know what to say to that. And we were talking about this offline, and I definitely do remember that the moment when we connected in Lake Placid. That was definitely a very, very tough time for me mentally and emotionally. That was a race that I had invested a lot in, and and not even like financially aside, that was a tough pill to swallow. But physically and emotionally, that was it's like you said, it's an amazing venue. There's just incredible energy there, and it was something I really wanted to be a part of. And I feel like that had been stripped away, and then the thought of maybe not even healing in time for Kona, which is a whole nother level of an experience, and then to have you there as kind of a calming, supportive presence, and then continuing in the weeks to come to offer words of encouragement and prayers, definitely meant a lot. So put it on the record, a very, very heartfelt thank you.
Well, you don't have to thank me, but thank him. Thank you. Like, thank him. Okay. I don't know how to do it. It's lame. But, look, I'm just grateful that you're able to still do what you love. And I think in overcoming sometimes, when that first happened, your mind probably went to, I'm not going to be able to do this. Why did this happen to me? Why? Why? Right? Not knowing that everything works together for your good. And your attitude, because of who you are, probably helped to shift, the healing process. But I can only imagine the questions and the thoughts that went in your head when you first got into the accident. And then now seeing that you were able to complete the bigger goal, which was Kona and St. George. That's just, there's no words to really express what it is. And I know that you have a lot to process, but I know that you have to be super proud and just giving thanks to your body for the strength that it can do. Like, these bodies are truly miracles that do amazing things.
Yeah, and like I said, I definitely still haven't had time to process that, because especially with the whole like recovery timeline, it was just, all right, what's the next step? How can I get through this next week? And how can we keep building a little bit more so I can get to the start line in good enough shape? And then once you're on the ground in Kona, like there's so much going on, and then all of a sudden it's race day, and it's like, all right, let's get through race day. How do we get through the swim? And then this part of the bike, all right, now we have to climb with the Javi and come back, and now it's onto a marathon. Just keep moving forward on the run. And then all of a sudden I'm running down OE drive, I hear my name shouted from a bunch of different directions. Marcus is running down the finishing chute, Mike Riley calls my name, and then all of a sudden I'm like rushed into the post-race area. It's like, all right, what just happened? Like these past 15 weeks have flown by. It means something. I don't know what that is yet. I still don't, now even 4 weeks later, because right after that is off to St. George for another incredible experience, that I'm still not quite sure how my body did that again. Yeah, and it is just something that I'm really appreciative for being able to have this experience. And I don't think it needs to be an Ironman or world championships or anything for someone to have kind of a similar feeling or of appreciation for your body to do that. I think just whatever that race is or whatever that goal is for you is trying to find that gets you motivated to challenge yourself in new ways. I think is incredibly powerful. For me, it was trying to find this edge with endurance and triathlon and kind of through Ironman. And that might not be that for everyone. It might just be getting through a sprint triathlon and, conquering maybe some fears of open water swimming around others, and then, making it through your bike leg and the run, and just feeling that finish line, wherever that is. I think I would encourage everyone to try to find that.
Yeah. And I would just say, I don't care what level of triathlon you do, whether it's a super sprint, Olympic, half distance, or full, there's always a thing. Like, I don't know if it ever gets easier or you just get better, but it is always a challenge, and a new challenge will present itself. I want to go back to your name being called out by Mike Riley, because I just recall him saying, Patrick McDeed, you're an Ironman. No, you're a tall Ironman. What was that about? Like, because you hit your head on the I guess the marquee, right?
So I didn't actually hit my head, but the one of the photographers they had there was just propped up at the best angle, and my across
Mm.
the finish line, I put my hands on the top of my head, just kind of like disbelief. I think I need to work on my finish line celebration or something. There are people like doing backflips over that thing, or skipping up in the air, and I just stumbled across and put my hands on my head. Um, but yeah, so it's like Mike O'Reilly is the voice of Iron Man. It's a lot of triathletes dream to have him call them across the finish line. This was his last race. He's retiring, and it just happened that there was a little bit of a distance between me and the person behind me, that he had some more time to fill than just my name. And I guess it struck him that I was tall. So that's what I got. Definitely memorable. It's I have clipped the finish line video for sure, and we'll save that one for a good laugh and a smile at a later time.
And how tall are you?
I'm 6'4", and the alpha flies definitely probably bumped me up a little bit as well.
Yeah. And so that also presented a new challenge, right? When we talk about diversity, equity, inclusion, and access in this sport, I don't think height is a diverse issue. And for us tall folks, like I'm tall for a female, but 6'4", and you come in so close, even putting your hands on your head and still being within some millimeters from hitting it, that's something to reconsider about the height of athletes that will be coming in the future, because you're still young, and there are going to be people who are going to be taller than you doing this sport. So we got to consider these things when we're thinking about like races, and how do we make the sport more diverse, and thinking about all of the angles. And I think that just goes to think like, when people are so used to something in a certain way, they're not thinking about how diversity is not just about race, color, and creed, but it's about height, weight, you know, gender. It's more than meets the eye. And so I think that's just another area to showcase in which we can be more welcoming to all various heights.
For sure. I think for me the biggest thing is definitely like the equipment it's made for kind of the middle of that bell curve. And it's tough to find some tall sizes and things.
Come on, can we get more than
So
six
originally,
inches? More than six
yeah,
inch
no one needs to
Crocs,
be seeing my
Right.
uh going to St. George. I had packed for a week in Kona, and then I got COVID coming back from Kona. We ended up staying out west with family before going to St. George. So I was very underprepared for the sharp change in weather conditions that were in St. George. I had a swim skin and not a wetsuit. And race morning, the water temperature they said was 62. The air temperature was low 40s at best. So definitely needed a wetsuit. Finding a wetsuit or someone I could borrow a wetsuit from, being my height, was quite the challenge. Luckily, I had a friend back home who was able to lend a wetsuit and send it to St. George with my mother. But yeah, it's not something you can easily just buy on the race site, when you're someone with my height. But one of the things that is cool about the World Championship events is just for the thousands of athletes, just the different body types and backgrounds, and just, the diversity of athletes you see at these events is really cool. And it's great to see that the sport is growing, and is catching on in diverse populations. But there's still, I think it's, as is quite clear, there's still a lot of work to be done there, to make it more accessible for many groups of people.
And that's why we're here. We are here to help in the ways in which we can. So, look, Patrick is 6'4". He's tall, thin, white male. Then you have me, 5'10", voluptuous, Black girl who do a lot. We got your answer. We have your answer. Just come to us, holler at us. We got ideas. Because I mean, thinking about it, even with trying to get tri kids, that is the hardest thing. Tri kids. Like, I don't want 3-inch shorts. I don't even want 6-inch shorts. Can you hit me with maybe a 9-inch? Because 9 inches on me is probably 6 inches in real time. Just okay, we're not getting on this because we have other things to talk about. Okay, sorry about that digression, but you
Much needed.
you do Kona, you get COVID, And then you do St. George, bionic man. You're not a biostatistician. You are a bionic man. What? Come on, how Sway?
I don't know. That definitely did not go as planned. I mean, obviously, with that many people on a small island, it was definitely a super spreader event. Even being very cautious, wearing a mask leading up to the race and kind of on race site around the venue. I think just with the interaction with people, it was bound that someone in our party was going to catch it and then pass it on to everyone else, and that's kind of what ended up happening. I was very fortunate that when I was flying back, so I went out there with my dad to Kona. When we were flying back, we were going through San Diego, where his side of the family is from, and we were able to quarantine there and recover, and then spend kind of an extra week with family in between before making the trip to Utah. It I more or less had a pretty mild case, at least compared to my father, which very lucky. But still at the same time, it was between recovering from the Ironman, not sure what time zone my body was in ever over the course of this past month, and then the COVID, it was just the recovery and the way my body was feeling was not great in between
Yeah.
the time between Kona and St. George. So I really had no idea what was going to happen this past weekend in St. George. And frankly, I just wanted to enjoy that experience and also do a lot of sightseeing out there. It's an absolutely beautiful area of the country that I highly recommend anyone go see if you have the chance. Um, yeah, just going back to what we've said many times, it's incredible what your body can do. I
Mhm.
I still don't I still can't wrap my head around that one. I haven't done too many 70.3s. That was my um, fourth one, not counting the cycling accident. And it was probably my best all around yet. Uh,
Wow.
so yeah, um, not that I needed to have that performance to enjoy it, but it just, yeah, it made it a little bit more special, I guess. Um, yeah, and a
Right.
sign of things to come in the future. I think is what is most motivating, I guess.
Bionic Pat is what we are calling you. So what's next for Patrick McDeed? What's next for Pat Bionic Man McDeed?
Ugh, I don't know. Right now, I'm definitely going in off-season mode. I've asked a ton from my body over this past year in many different ways, from trying to heal bone to doing these crazy endurance events. So I'm going to take a few weeks to let that all sink in, physically, mentally, emotionally, and focus on some of the work I need to get done on the research side of things, and then start to plan out what next year looks like. I think long term, I think having that taste of the experience in Kona was pretty incredible. I'm glad I got to have that now and can think about what it'll take to get back there, if that is a goal. But really, um, my goals in triathlon, like I said, are not about podiums or like elite level status. I don't view myself as a like ultra competitive athlete. I'm in this to kind of pursue my own personal goals and to find out what I'm capable of. So just continuing the foundation that I laid this year, hopefully without injury setbacks, and just keep trying to see if I can, find out what I'm capable of, incrementally get a little bit better each year, and still enjoy the process and challenge myself in new ways, and not just get sucked into doing it just because, but really to still just enjoy the process and the journey of multi-sport and the community and everything that's involved in it.
I love it. Um, um, well, we can't have you. Uh, I'm getting sidetracked and all because I'm like your humility. That's what I wanted to say. I kept thinking he's so humble. He's so humble. Patrick is the bionic, gentle, humble McDeed. Yeah. Patrick Bionic Man, that's gentle, humble McDeed. That's it. You're very gentle, you're very humble, and I love it. And that's probably why you have so many of the good things kind of happening at a more expedited pace for you. But I can't let you leave without doing some rapid fire. And I want to say, Sarah Truitt surprised us with you taking over for TBL. And when I tell you, I was like, "Is I said, what? What? How did you do this?" I was like, Patrick doesn't even do his own social media, but it was the best. It was the best. You were so good. You were explaining things. And the fact that you did all that, and this was your first time at Kona, it was special. So thank you for allowing, well, one, thank you for being a part of that little surprise with Sarah and doing that for us, but just being able to be there, it was like, oh, I have FOMO. I'm not there. Oh my God. It was just so yummy to see and so appeasing. So if you haven't checked it out, I do think it's on the Try Beginner's Luck page. I think we were able to save some of the clips. So definitely check it out. It's really some just good content on all fronts. So with that said, what's your favorite distance?
Definitely Ironman.
Okay.
I don't have a fast twitch fiber in my body, so longer the better.
Okay. What's your favorite leg and why?
The swim. I think going back, that's kind of was my first love as a child, and then I think it still is.
Okay. Um, what's your go-to workout and what does it look like?
Oh man. Sorry, this isn't gonna be rapid fire. I don't know. I don't know if I have some favorite swim workouts that I like to. So I really love, probably no one else does, long swim workouts. And just something where you can kind of like just find a rhythm and stick to it. And I guess you could say the same thing for a bike or a run workout. Um, but it's usually something that has kind of a long up tempo interval, short recovery, maybe with a pull buoy, and then something short and fast recovery, and then work down into a slightly less long tempo interval. So for me, I'll start the season as maybe something like 500 for the tempo interval, work down to 4, 3, 2, and then 1. And then the short fast interval will be 100s, split up by either 100 or 50 easy pull.
That all sounded like a foreign language to me, so I'm going to keep going. Um, what is your favorite post-food race uh, meal?
I am a huge fan of Chipotle. I I think it is just um, for the money. It is a good amount of food and it's good quality. It's just kind of everything you need post race. Nice serving of rice, a little bit of protein in there, and then you can't go wrong with some chips and guac at the end.
Chipotle. Ooh, I'm just gonna keep on going with that one. Will not.
Doesn't have to be Chipotle, but like the burrito bowl, we can with some chips and guac. That can be.
I mean, I get it. I make the bowls at home, but me and Chipotle, well, it doesn't really matter. It's not about me. Are you a transition minimalist, Goldilocks, where everything has to be just right, or kitchen sink, you bring everything?
Uh, Definitely a Goldilocks.
I feel like you are a kitchen sink the way you
I,
have.
I mean, I'm very organized. It's probably come across here. There's probably many checklists, some in written form and then typed up. Probably have pictures of things. It's all very very put together. Yeah, I'm not someone that will just load up everything. Everything's very very structured. So definitely just right.
I love it. Um, Patrick, because you are very type A, everything is structured. How do you decompress?
I'll let you know when I figure that out.
All right, we need an answer to that soon. But in the meantime,
Yeah.
we ask everybody this on Try Beginner's Luck. Do you pee on the bike or do you get off the bike and take a proper pee break?
Well, in training, you absolutely get off the bike. There is no need to be doing that anytime in training. I don't. People think they need to practice that. That is a complete lie. If you have to in the race, I mean, it depends where you're at. Like, there's nothing wrong with taking the stop, but if you just need to be a little bit on the bike, it's okay.
Look
I
at
would say
how
both. It
gentle.
really it depends.
He gave it to us gentle. Look, I get it. Doing a scheduled just regular training, absolutely not. Like, you have the time to take and do it. But in the race, especially for those who need all their time, pee on the bike, wash your bike later, and move on. Okay. All right. Patrick, thank you so much. The bionic, gentle, humble McDeed. I probably got all that wrong, but I appreciate you. Thank you. You have to come back. I do have one question, and I'm gonna leave it at that. Rice with maple syrup, though?
Yeah, no, I wouldn't recommend that as any daily diet. That is not necessarily healthy, but you just got to get in those carbs for race day. And white rice is pretty bland. And then so instead of spicing it up with like an olive oil or something that has some fats in it that aren't really going to help you on race day, at least, yeah, maple syrup, more carbs on there, tastes good. Give it a try for your next race.
I actually am going to give it a try, and I'll report back if it's really good. But he did mention that in one of his stories. He was like, yeah, just having some rice with maple syrup. And we were like, what? Rice, maple syrup? But you got to do what you got to do. With that said, whenever you try beginner's luck, you always win. And I am so overwhelmed with joy and gratitude that I tried beginner's luck with this podcast. It is our anniversary podcast. Hey, we doing it. And I'm gonna just do a universal, we did it, a year old. So excited. I just don't know what to do. But thank you all. Share, like, leave us comments, give us ideas about what you want to hear. And just sometimes let us know how we're doing, if we're doing good or if we need to just chill out. I'm trying to chill out. I received the good feedback. I appreciate you guys. And we just thank you. So have a good night. Have a good day. Happy November with all the gratitude. And we're out. Peace. Thank you for tuning in and listening to this episode. We need your help so we can continue to try at TBL. So for more information on where you can find and subscribe to this podcast, visit www.trybeginnersluck.com. And don't forget, whenever you try beginner's luck, you always win.